and good afternoon. Well, here I am. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Pender, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you, Tony, and Mike Hawley is somewhere, there he is, for inviting me to speak here today. It is really my pleasure to have an opportunity to share with you who I am and a little bit about what I'm about. I would start by saying this. I try to live my life by this principle. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Seems simple to say. Very difficult to actually practice. But I try to do that. So, I was born, as Pender said, in Buffalo, New York. And I was born into a single-parent household. And my family is, actually I have Carolina blood in me. My dad is from Chester County, South Carolina. My mom's family is mostly from Georgia and Florida. So I feel like I'm a Southerner, even though I was born in Yankee land up north. I am the oldest of 4 children. I have 3 younger sisters. So I was in a house full of women. Let me say that again. I was in a house full of women. So I understand all that. Now, let me just get this out of the way first. I am from Buffalo, and I am a Bills fan, okay? I just have to say that and acknowledge that. But I do love the Panthers. Now, let me tell you why. You may remember that some of the first Panthers were Buffalo Bills players. Frank Wright. The first general manager was Bill Polian, who had been the general manager of the Buffalo Bills. So I feel like I have a connection to the Panthers. And insofar as the Bills are in the AFC, and the Panthers are in the NFC, I'm in good shape most of the time. But being from Buffalo, my mother insisted on all of us having an education. And she was absolutely unforgiving in that regard. So I attended a school called the Nichols School. And you see that nice bucolic picture of the Nichols School. And to give you a sense of what kind of school it is, it's very much like Charlotte Latin, very much like Charlotte Country Day School, but just with a much longer history. Nichols has been around since 1892. And so you just have that tradition that those other schools that I mentioned don't. But, and another way to think about it is, if you ever saw the movie Dead Poets Society, it's sort of that, and a lighter version of it. That movie hit me right here. It was a deeply moving movie. Anyway, so Nichols was, and the reason I always talk about Nichols is that it was a transformative experience for me. I had grown up in a working class neighborhood and had gone to public school. And I got this opportunity to go to this private school where there were kids there who were from wealthy families who had been with each other for many years. And so it was a transformative experience for me, not only academically, to learn how to do academic work in a very serious and structured way, but also culturally. There's a lot of cultural education that happens there. So I got involved. I was on the debate team. I did public speaking, and I enjoyed it tremendously. I did theater. I was on the Model UN. You see a theme developing it. But mostly, what I learned at Nichols was how to write. That skill, in and of itself, has served me well in everything that I've done since then. How to write, and how to write well. Because it leads to speaking well. Somebody has mentioned to me once before that I seem to love the English language. And it's really true, I do. I enjoy using the English language, which I guess explains why I wound up being an English major in college. So in 1983, when I was still in high school, doing debating and speaking, I had the privilege of competing in a national tournament of public speakers. And in that tournament, it was called a dramatic interpretation. So you take a speech that someone has given, and you give some interpretation to it, and you compete with other kids across the country. So we did that, and went to Chicago, and I did a speech from Mark Twain. It was an 1882 speech, and it was called Advice to Youth. And it was perfectly satirical, and I thought I did okay with it. And so I was privileged to go to that competition in Chicago and win a national speech award. I tell you that because it's that experience, again, at Nichols, learning how to write, how to speak, that those things, those foundational things, have served me to this very day. Now, I was one of three African-American students at Nichols. So you can imagine being transported from a different place to this place at school every day. I rode a bus from my house to Nichols, and on that same bus, the kids in my neighborhood would get off at the neighborhood high school. And I would continue on the bus to get to Nichols. So there was this not only intellectual transformation, but this physical one. Leaving the neighborhood, kids behind, and going to this separate place. Well, having gone to Nichols School, the only logical place to go is to some Northeastern liberal university, but I chose Hamilton College instead. Hamilton is a small school, very much like Davidson College. In fact, the first time I went on Davidson's campus, I could have sworn that I was at Hamilton. It's that similar. And again, at Hamilton, I continued to do speech and debating and Model United Nations. And in each of those things that I did, I always seemed to rise to leadership roles. Not because of, overweening ambition, but it just seemed to happen. And I can't fully explain it, but it is what happened. So I also did a talk show. It was called The Last Word. Now, MSNBC stole the name of our show, okay? We had it first. It was The Last Word. Check it out. It's on the record. WHCL 88.7 FM in Clinton, New York. Your voice in the Mohawk Valley. So, in addition to doing that, I also called hockey games on the radio. And I loved it. I started that at Nichols as well. So what happened was, the team would play, hockey's big in Buffalo, in case you didn't know. We're practically Canadian, by the way. So they would play their games, and they were filming the games. And one day, I just started doing announcing. I just started doing it. And then they started to tape it, and the team wanted to hear what my calls were of the game. So I said, well, gee whiz, they have a radio station at Hamilton College. Why can't I continue to do this? And it just so happened that the student who had done it the year before had graduated, so they didn't have anybody. So in my freshman year, I'm calling hockey games. And I did it for all 4 years, and absolutely loved it. I continued to do theater. I played Macbeth, very emotionally challenging role. I had to be in, I had scruffy beard and hair, and I actually had to be in shape, unlike my current condition, but it was a great role, and it was a great opportunity to go to a school where you had access to professors who were trained people. You weren't taught by teaching assistants, you were taught by PhDs, and this was an important experience for me. So, Let me move a little quickly here. So I went to Georgetown for law school. That's the current picture of Georgetown. When I went there, it was a dump. So this, it's really beautiful now. And then at Georgetown, I met my lovely wife, Camille. Now, I just want to say this. She claims that I stalked her, okay? But let me tell you what the true story is. We were in the same clinic, and, you know, I thought she was an interesting person and asked her to go play squash. Squash! Squash! And, I mean, who plays squash anymore? Certainly not in DC. So I found out that she played squash. Now, I didn't really know how to play squash, but I played racquetball and tennis, so I figured, you know, it's close enough. So we go, and she decides to be 45 minutes late. And I think she was hoping that I would leave and that would be the end of it. But I stayed. Then we get on the court, and she says not one word during the whole game. Not one word. Now, this is a person who is very talkative, engaging, all of that. Not a single word. So I think she was hoping, and maybe if I were smarter, I would have just called it. But I asked her out, and the rest after that is history. But she calls that stalking. I just say it's persistence, and here we are, 17 years later. So after Georgetown, I went back to Buffalo, and I practiced at a fairly large firm, and I did that for about 4 years, and moved back to DC and got married, and we had our first child, and we had to make a decision about where we were going to live, whether we were going to stay in DC or whether we were going to go somewhere else. And so we looked around the country, and Charlotte kept coming up on our list. We visited several times, we researched, and we made a deliberate, a specific decision to move to Charlotte. And we did it because there was just something about the spirit in Charlotte. People were so positive. People were so positive, so can-do, so about something, that it was infectious. And so we said, we gotta be here. And when we moved here in 2000, it was still a fairly ground floor type city where you could come, and if you're, have industry and diligence about you, that you could actually do something in the town. So we did that. Now, I should tell you, my wife is from Oxford, Mississippi. Great town, but it's Mississippi. So, I'm sorry, I'd say that to her too. Of course, then she says, well, you from Buffalo, I mean, come on. After we moved here, and I want to tell you that when we moved here, we just had our baby. Jackson was not even a year old, and it was great. I mean, Charlotte is a great place. I love this place. I am glad that we made the decision to move here, to plant our roots here, to raise our family here. I have not regretted that for one single second, which is why I am so enthusiastic about contributing to our community, which is why I think it's important that we all are involved, because we all have a stake. I love the fact that Charlotte is a can-do place. It's about doing something, not just saying you're doing something. So, this brings us to our state motto. So, North Carolina adopted our motto in 1893. We were the last of the 13 original colonies to do so. And our motto, as you know, esse quam videre, to be rather than to seem. That is so profound because it describes us. We're about being rather than seeming to be. And that to me was engaging. I got here, I had a young child, wife, starting a practice, law practice. and spent a lot of time doing that. And spent many years, I did some criminal work, so it got me into the courthouse. I met a lot of judges, a lot of lawyers, got involved in bar activities. And in fact, some of the lawyers who I practiced with in those days are now judges sitting on the bench now. As Pender mentioned, I served on the board of the Mecklenburg County Bar. I was president of the John Leary Bar here. I had a law partnership with now Mayor Pro Tem Michael Barnes. And in that, I got a chance to see a lot of people and meet a lot of people and exposed to a lot of how the town works. And so I had an interest in politics that really started in law school. It's kind of a hazard of going to law school in DC, and politics just gets in you. So it was in me, and an opportunity arose in 2012 to run for office, and I said, look, if I don't do it now, I never will. So I did. I'm glad I did. So now, everything I have done as a county commissioner, I've tried to do by seeing things clearly and by acting reasonably. And so I feel like what I'm doing, I believe that I'm engaged in servant leadership. So what does that mean? What ability to listen to people. Really listen, not just hear them, but to listen. And I try to do that. In my practice, I try to do it. In my life, I try to do it. To have empathy for people, which I try to do in the type of practice that I want. To heal people, to have awareness of what's actually going on. To be able to persuade people. This, of course, comes from being a trial lawyer. To conceptualize, to see things in abstract ways, and to conceptualize important concepts. Is that working? Okay. To have foresight, stewardship, commitment to the growth of people, and finally to building community. All of those things is what I aspire to do, because I believe servant leadership is enduring leadership. Is not just about the person who is the leader, but about who that person claims to lead. I also think that you can't be a great leader unless you know how to follow. Now, I wasn't the first one to say this. So Sam Rayburn, you know, Rayburn office building in DC, former senator, and he said it. You can't be a leader unless you know how to follow. And I believe that's true. So, in preparing for this speech, I got a homework assignment from Mike Hawley, a former professor. Thank you, Mike. So there were some questions that he wanted me to answer, so I'll answer some of those questions. So one of them was whether I had leadership experience in the past and what influenced my leadership style. And as I mentioned a moment ago, yes, I have always seemed to come into leadership positions, and I don't say that as a matter of ego. I consider myself blessed. I consider myself to have been given gifts that I'm called to use. And if they're of service to people, I think it's my duty to offer that. I believe that leadership is about serving others. I believe it's about having passion, being firm when it's required, having compassion, and knowing when to be quiet, when not to argue, when to let the passion calm down. I think that's also important. So, we have an issue, and I can't leave this podium without talking about an issue of public concern that we have now. We have a situation in our state where we are sliding. We are at a competitive disadvantage when it comes to our educational system. We find ourselves compensating our teachers at the bottom of the pack in the country. We find ourselves losing teachers to other jurisdictions because we don't compensate them properly. And I regard this as an important issue because education is the foundation of a prosperous society, a prosperous economy. If you don't have a strong educational system, you do suffer. So you may have heard in the news and other places that a majority of the members of the County Commission have proposed to, well, we've actually voted to put on the ballot in November for the people to decide whether or not we should levy a 1/4 cent sales tax to fund teacher compensation, to fund CPCC, to fund ASC and our arts and cultural sector, and to fund our libraries. Now, you may have heard that there's been a great deal of public conversation about that, and I think it's a healthy conversation for us to have. And ultimately, our resolution of this question will be about who we are as a community. Because when we say we support education, when we say that, do we back those words up with action? So that is before us, and there are plenty of arguments back and forth, and I won't get into those right now. But I bring it up as an example of at least what I can do to see things clearly, to propose a course of action, to be able to defend, explain that course of action, and then to see what the people say. What else do we ask for from our leaders, our public and political leaders? So I encourage you to consider this issue. I believe it is a sustainable plan for a clear and present issue for our community. I believe that rather than doubt, that we will overcome our reservation, that we will rise to our better selves, that will be the Charlotte that we always have been. We're about getting things done. We're not about letting things happen to us. And when a clear and present issue is before us, we will not shrink from it. We will seize the moment. And that's what I hope we will do. I do worry, of course, that that for any number of reasons, because of fear, because of doubt, because of active opposition, that this point will not be seen, that the logic of the situation will not be seen. But I have to skip this one. I have to go to what Abraham Lincoln said. That we may fail in the struggle ought not deter us from the support of a cause that we believe to be just. I believe this cause is just. We have to protect, care for our people in Mecklenburg County. I believe that is a just cause. And the fact that there are those who oppose it, the fact that people have questions about it, we should answer those questions. But at the end of the day, we have a call to act. And I hope that we will. So I return where I began, that by advancing this proposal, that what I'm attempting to do anyway, along with 4 other commissioners, not just me, is to do unto others what I would have them do unto you. Now, all this is happening in the course of an election season. You may have heard, I'm running for re-election. And I appreciate your votes, each and every one of you. You all can vote for me. Don't be shy, you really can. All you need to do is press the button that says Fuller for County Commission at Large. And I hope that you will. So, let's go boldly forward. Let's rise to the challenge. Let's do what we always do in Charlotte. We solve problems. We get things done. We move our community forward. I hope I can play a part in that, and I thank you all for allowing me to speak here today.